Do you have any idea how much I have to endure while you're out during the day? Mother is taking care of you during the day, isn't she? I have to work. If I quit my job, would I be ordered around and worked to death by my father-in-law 24 hours a day? The thought made me shudder, and I knew I absolutely didn't want to quit. But never mind about my father-in-law. I'd expected this much. What I hadn't counted on was my husband. Dad can't move, so it's pitiful, isn't it? You should do at least that much for him. But this is for your father's own good. The doctor said he should do as much as he can by himself. But Dad doesn't seem to think so. Please do everything you can for him. My husband speaks as if I'm just making excuses to avoid taking care of his father. Then, while he was away on a business trip, divorce papers arrived in the mail. Perfect timing. I'll submit these right away. Are you really okay with this, considering you have children? I'm totally fine. Because my husband. My name is Nikki. I'm a 42-year-old housewife and mother to a son in 7th grade and a daughter in 6th grade. I work part-time for 4 hours a day. I met my husband when I was 23, after graduating from college and starting work, through an introduction from a colleague. My husband was an elite employee at a major trading company and was 26 at the time. He was sophisticated and urbane, our conversations were enjoyable, and I liked him from our first meeting. So when he asked me out, I was on cloud 9 and truly felt happy. After dating for 2 years, we got married. I continued working, but when I first got pregnant, I developed pregnancy toxemia. You're precious to me, and our baby is just as precious. Why don't you quit your job and return to work once the children are more independent? Though I struggled with the decision because I loved my job, I needed to be hospitalized and didn't want to burden my workplace. I accepted my husband's suggestion and resigned. Then I gave birth to our son, Zach, safely. The following year, our daughter Tara was born, and I became a mother of 2, living happy days. However, something happened that would bring those happy days to an end. 12 years into our marriage, when Zach was 11 and Tara was 10, my father-in-law fell ill. Although his life was saved, he was left with after effects that required nursing care. Mom can't handle it alone, so I'm thinking we should live together with my parents. What do you think? I honestly hesitated. Though my in-laws' house was only a 30-minute drive away and we visited occasionally as a family, I didn't get along well with my father-in-law. He was old-fashioned and made no attempt to hide his belief that women should serve men. It's good that you quit your job after having children. Women these days are so uppity, saying they want to work even after getting married. That's what he said with a smile when I quit my job. While I had various issues with my father-in-law, my mother-in-law was a wonderful person, and I couldn't bear the thought of her taking care of that difficult man alone. In my day, we thought women should quit work and become housewives after marriage, but times are different now. I respect you for taking pride in your work. That's what my mother-in-law said to me in front of my father-in-law, who had frowned upon hearing I would continue working after marriage. After that, she would subtly help me whenever something came up, and thanks to her, major conflicts between my father-in-law and me were avoided. Moving in together to care for this father-in-law, I agonized over it but ultimately agreed. I was worried about my mother-in-law, who was over 70, and thought my father-in-law wouldn't be so aggressive now that his body was impaired. Plus, my husband had always considered my position. If anything happened, he would surely handle it properly. That was my thinking behind the decision, but it proved naive. When are you going to quit your job? Soon after we moved in together, my father-in-law learned I was working part-time and said this unpleasantly. "When you quit your job after having Zach, I thought you showed promise." It seems my father-in-law had expected me to stay home all day and take care of him constantly. However, I go to work during the day except for Sundays. This is work I've been doing all along. I have no intention of quitting. He doesn't like that. When we moved in together, we renovated my in-laws' house to make it barrier-free. My in-laws were somewhat wealthy, and while the house was old, the property was spacious. My father-in-law could move freely around the house in his indoor wheelchair. He should be able to go wherever he wants by himself. We also installed handrails. With no steps, holding onto these should provide good rehabilitation, but my father-in-law refuses to move by himself at all. He calls for either my mother-in-law or me even to fetch one thing. "Father, it would be good rehabilitation if you moved a bit by yourself." Shut up. How dare you, a mere daughter-in-law, disobey me? Don't order me around just because you don't want to move. I think my father-in-law is the one who doesn't want to move, but he just bosses people around like this. But never mind about my father-in-law. I'd expected this much. The problem was my husband. Dad can't move, so it's pitiful, isn't it? You should do at least that much for him. But this is for your father's own good. The doctor said he should do as much as he can by himself. But Dad doesn't seem to think so. Please do everything you can for him. My husband speaks as if I'm just making excuses to avoid taking care of his father. Although we had been united in raising our children, my husband no longer tried to hide his attitude of dumping his father's care entirely on me. Mom's there too, isn't she? I'm leaving Dad to you too, and children need their mother most anyway. No matter what I consult him about, my husband seems to think these things aren't his responsibility. When it was just the four of us, life was busy but happy. Amid the busy days, we made time for just the two of us after the children went to bed. On days when my busy husband came home early, we would have a nightcap together or watch popular dramas. After moving in with his parents, such times completely disappeared. I wake up early to prepare breakfast. After seeing off my husband and children, I take care of my father-in-law, then go to my part-time job. My mother-in-law handles lunch, but I shop on my way home from work and make dinner. Then I take turns with my mother-in-law caring for my father-in-law. This is really troublesome. First, my father-in-law complains every time about my working. Do you have any idea how much I have to endure while you're out during the day? Mother is taking care of you during the day, isn't she? I have to work. That's why I'm telling you to quit your job. John spoils you, that's why you're getting so uppity. If I quit my job, would I be ordered around and worked to death by my father-in-law 24 hours a day? The thought made me shudder, and I knew I absolutely didn't want to quit. "I'm sorry," my mother-in-law said to me, as if hiding from my father-in-law's eyes. He was always domineering, but since getting sick and losing his freedom of movement, he seems to have become even more arrogant. I thought she was probably right. It seems he wants to use my mother-in-law and me like his hands and feet, trying to feel superior to us. He wants to think of himself as the one giving orders, and us as the ones who must obey. But it's enough that I'm the one being treated this way. You should live more as you want to. My mother-in-law speaks as if she's given up on everything. Of course, I have no intention of becoming a victim of my father-in-law. I want my mother-in-law to live more freely too, but I don't know how to make her understand this. Whenever I think about this, I feel incredibly frustrated. About a year after we started living together, the situation became even more serious. First, my father-in-law's condition deteriorated visibly. Though my father-in-law was practically bedridden, his tongue remained sharp as he continued to berate my mother-in-law and me. "Can't you do things more efficiently? I suffer because you don't put your heart into it. What kind of daughter-in-law are you?" Frustrated with his immobile body, my father-in-law constantly threw such words at us. When my mother-in-law tried to shield me from him, he would become physically violent. The women in this family are truly worthless. After being married to you for decades, this is what happened to me. I'm truly an unlucky man. Saying such things, perhaps knowing his own strength was weak now, he would throw newspapers, magazines, and whatever else he could grab at my mother-in-law. Of course, I talked back to my father-in-law many times, but each time I did, he would be harder on my mother-in-law, so eventually I just silently cared for him. I reported this to my husband, but he, who never actually helped care for his father, ignored it. "I don't know what to do when you tell me these things. I've left Dad's care to you and Mom, so please handle it well." That's all he would say, brushing it off. "Work is really busy right now. I'm sorry, but please take care of Dad until I get through this." When he brings up work, I can't say anything more. Actually, the house renovation had cost quite a lot. Our savings have really gone down, so I need to work hard to build them back up. That's true, so I had to give up on consulting with John about his father. Something even worse happened. Perhaps from watching my mother-in-law and me silently enduring his father's treatment, Zach started treating us terribly. "Just hurry up and do it. You're such an inefficient woman." I tried to think it was just because he'd entered middle school and his environment had changed, but it clearly wasn't just that. He would say such harsh things to my mother-in-law, me, and even Tara. "How dare you speak like that? Apologize. Shut up. Women shouldn't talk back to men." Saying this, Zach would throw things and slam doors loudly. He was just like a younger version of my father-in-law. Though he was my own son, gradually my feelings of hatred surpassed my affection, and now I rarely speak to him except when necessary. When I asked my husband to scold him because his behavior was so terrible, he wouldn't take it seriously. Zach is just at that age. It's called rebellion. I remember being like that too. Do you really think that after seeing his terrible attitude? It wasn't that bad. He's not being violent or anything. True, Zach hasn't been physically violent yet. But he makes loud noises and throws things. Can we really say this isn't violence? So are you saying we should just leave him alone until he becomes violent? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we should watch how things go. My husband says this as if it doesn't matter. I understood that saying anything to this man was pointless. Around the time I had reached a state of near resignation, another change occurred in our lives. My father-in-law passed away. It happened suddenly in our second year of living together. His condition worsened, and he had a seizure. After the rushed funeral, we returned to normal life. Normal life? What kind of life is that? During these 2 years, I had completely forgotten what that meant. If normal life means life before living with my in-laws, before caring for my father-in-law, then our current life is not normal. Wake up, prepare breakfast, see off husband and children, go to part-time work. Shop on the way home, prepare dinner, do housework, and sleep when night comes. If this is normal life, then we've returned to normal life. But my heart isn't at peace, and when I look at my mother-in-law, she has the same expression. What should we do now? My mother-in-law asks me this with a troubled look. It seems I've come to a time when I need to make various decisions. Zach remained a miniature version of my father-in-law. No, his behavior was getting worse daily, as if trying to make up for my father-in-law's absence. Shut up. Don't order me around. The other day, he finally pushed Tara. How could you do such a thing? Fortunately, Tara fell onto the sofa and wasn't hurt. It's her fault. She dared to scold me even though she's just my sister. Women should just silently listen to what men say. Tara had only told Zach to throw away the garbage from the snacks he'd eaten in the living room. Zach, why don't you throw away your own snack trash? Even little kids don't do that. When she said that, he yelled at her and pushed her. Zach is completely out of control now. How did he become such a child? I told my husband that Zach had finally become physically violent with family members, but his response was the same as always. They were probably just playing around. Don't all families have fights like that? It wasn't at that level. Zach will keep growing and getting stronger, right? Please scold him before things get worse. Okay. I'll talk to him when I have time. Oh right, I'm going on a business trip tomorrow. My husband left these words and departed for a long business trip the next day. Watching his back as he left, I muttered to myself. Looks like I really need to take serious action now. While I was wondering what to do, divorce papers arrived in the mail from my husband during his business trip. An ordinary envelope. When I opened it, wondering what it was, there were divorce papers. My hands holding them trembled involuntarily. He probably thinks I'm shocked. That's not it. I laughed and my hands trembled because my husband's blatant attitude was so ridiculous. In other words, now that his father's care is over, I'm no longer needed. He's really straightforward. I wonder how far he'll go in looking down on me? I might as well sign it. All right. I'll submit these right away. Are you really okay with this, considering you have children? As I was filling out the divorce papers while humming, my mother-in-law asked worriedly. I'm totally fine. Because my husband doesn't know anything. I really want to go submit the divorce papers right now, but that would probably be hasty. I should do what needs to be done properly and submit them at my own timing. However, getting these is a big deal. For now, I plan to wait for him to return home and have a proper discussion. That's better. It's sad, but he brought this on himself. There's nothing we can do. My mother-in-law looked pitiful, but that look was directed not at me who had been served divorce papers, but at her foolish son. A few days later, my husband returned from his business trip. Oh, you signed it? That was the first thing he said. Before that, I have something I want to ask. Why divorce? When I asked calmly, my husband looked a bit surprised. He probably thought I would cry and beg him not to leave. But I won't do that. I just want to hear what reason he'll give. What exactly made you want a divorce? I tried asking differently. This might be easier for him to answer specifically. My husband is still staring at my face. He seems somewhat flustered. What do you think? He's using a cowardly tactic. He probably wants to gain control of the conversation by making me answer because it's hard for him to say it himself. I'm asking because I don't know. Please no answering questions with questions. Clear panic shows on my husband's face. Because you're indifferent to me. Indifferent? When did I ever do that? You decided everything about the children and everything else by yourself, never listening to my opinion. Unbelievable. He treats everything like it's someone else's problem. He's the one who dumped everything on me. Since you seem to have forgotten, let me remind you. You're the one who wouldn't listen whenever I tried to consult with you. Perhaps because I spoke to him as if lecturing a child, my husband seemed to get angry. Is that how you speak to your husband? Know your place. Does he think I'll cower if he tries to intimidate me with a loud voice? He suddenly started yelling. Your loud voice doesn't bother me. I'm used to it from your father and Zach. I said with a snort. My husband's face turned red as he glared at me. Let me say it again, I tried to consult with you about various things, but you were the one who was indifferent to everything I said. Don't lie. I never heard any of that. Then would you like to hear this? I took out a voice recorder and placed it in front of my husband, then turned it on. From it came my voice consulting with my husband, and his voice answering disinterestedly. Why did you record something like this? Because I thought you might say something like this someday. So I recorded it just in case. This is wiretapping. That's what I hate about you. That's why I want a divorce. That's it. My husband's face turned bright red as if he might breathe fire, and he suddenly threw the voice recorder. Now there's no evidence. My husband grinned triumphantly. I wonder if destroying property counts as violence. What did you say? It's pointless to destroy that. I have backups of the data. And your current actions are being recorded too. My husband looked around the room, startled by my words. This really shows how little interest you had in household matters. We installed security cameras around the house because your father might move around dangerously without us knowing. You just destroyed the voice recorder without any discussion. I'll keep a record of all of this. That's unfair. If it was for Dad's sake, you don't need them now that he's gone. That's not for you to decide. I just happen to keep them. With all the cleanup work, it was good I postponed removing the cameras. My husband was trembling with anger at my words. So, will you tell me why you want a divorce? I won't agree to it until I understand why. Like I said, it's because you disregarded me as your husband. Is that your final answer? As I mentioned before, I have data of various things. You should think carefully before speaking. My husband swallowed his words, finally seeming to realize he shouldn't say anything careless. You'll tell me the reason for the divorce, right? I didn't let up my offensive. I wondered what reason he would give now. Because you've lost your appeal. Now he came out with that. Since we moved here, you've become too domestic, and I can't see you as a woman anymore. Isn't that because I was caring for your father? That's just an excuse. If you wanted to, you could have made an effort to stay attractive as a woman. I'm sick of your laziness. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. What's so funny? Try telling that reason to anyone else. No one will understand. Pushing all his father's care onto his wife, doing nothing to help with housework or childcare, being indifferent when his wife tried to consult him, how could a wife in such a position have room to think about staying attractive? My husband probably understands this much. He just blurted it out in desperation. But I want a divorce too. My husband's face brightened. However, there are conditions. What are they? Tell me. I listed several conditions. First, pay me compensation. I haven't done anything to warrant compensation. I took out a file full of documents and thrust it in front of my husband. This is. Inside were multiple photos showing my husband being intimate with a woman. My husband had been having an affair. And it had started even before we began living with his parents. You suggested living together because you wanted to dump your father's care on me so you could meet this woman, right? How did you? Before we started living together, I got suspicious and investigated. My husband hated his father. Yet he suddenly wanted to live together. It seemed strange. When I looked into it, that's what I found. The other woman was my husband's subordinate at work. I don't know how incompetent he thought I was, but evidence quickly piled up. And I kept all of it properly. I thought maybe you'd reflect and change your mind after seeing me take care of your father. That's why I pretended not to see it once. But you didn't change. Rather, I should say you changed for the worse. My husband silently looked down. So I'm demanding that compensation. From both you and that woman. This was the first condition. You pushed the living arrangement and care onto me because you wanted to have an affair. It will be quite a sum, but please accept it. My husband remained silent. Also, regarding child support for the children, I don't need it. Really? That's fine? Yes. We'll call it even. My husband tilts his head, not understanding my words. We'll each take one child. You take Zach, I'll take Tara. That won't work. If you don't like that, I won't agree to the divorce. My husband fell silent with a groan. He probably wants to marry his mistress right after divorcing me. What will you do? After thinking for a while, my husband said, I accept. He might be thinking of sending Zach to a boarding school or something. There are several ways to get rid of him. Though it's sad for Zach, I've completely lost any maternal affection for my son. My husband's angry outburst earlier looked exactly like his father. I no longer have confidence in living with Zach, who resembles both his father and grandfather. You had a rebellious phase, just like Zach, right? I think you'll be able to understand Zach better. I said this with a smile. We decided on several other conditions too. Division of assets, moving expenses, compensation for dumping his father's care on me, and so on. Though it added up to quite a sum, fortunately my husband is still an elite earner for now. He accepted it all readily. Once we make these conditions into a notarized document, I'll submit the divorce papers. My husband looked thoroughly relieved. After creating the notarized document and receiving the promised amount in a lump sum, I submitted the divorce papers as promised. Now we're strangers. You can marry your mistress or do whatever you like. However, I'll be living here until I decide on my new home. This was also part of our agreement. Leave as soon as possible. It's unnatural for strangers to keep living in the same house. My husband said this with a clearly displeased look. He probably wants to invite his mistress to this house as soon as possible. Oh right, I still haven't received compensation from your mistress. I'll think about it after I get that. What? That's not what we agreed. What agreement? Your compensation and your partner's compensation are separate things, aren't they? The notarized document makes no mention of the mistress at all. I won't feel secure without receiving that. What a greedy woman. The greedy one is your partner, isn't she? Stealing someone else's husband. My husband had no way to respond. Anyway, this is my house. Now that we're strangers, please leave as soon as possible. I'm begging you. My husband says this with a tragic expression. About that, I don't think this is your house. What do you mean? Ignoring my husband's puzzled look, I gave a slight nod to my mother-in-law. Then my mother-in-law said, "This house is mine." What do you mean? This house is in my name. So it's not your house. My husband's face shows he doesn't understand what his mother is saying. So I continue the explanation. This house was originally your mother's property, not your father's. So it's not yours. My husband still looks unconvinced by my explanation. That's understandable. I explained the circumstances I knew to my husband, or rather, ex-husband. Your father was originally adopted into the family through marriage, and all the property belongs to your mother. What? Your father was that kind of person, right? He probably never wanted to tell you he married into the family because it would have hurt his pride. My ex-husband slumped dejectedly. But if the house is Mom's, I'm the heir eventually. It will be mine in the future, right? About that, I've been adopted by your mother. What's that about? When the talk of living together came up after my father-in-law got sick, I had a long talk with my mother-in-law, just the two of us. That's when we talked, so of course my mother-in-law knows about her son's affair too. I had your father marry in as an adopted son to inherit this house. That's probably why he became so domineering, trying to compensate. It's hard to believe now, but apparently my mother-in-law and father-in-law had a passionate love marriage. Despite their different social standings and my mother-in-law having no siblings, my father-in-law agreed to be adopted into the family. My father-in-law's attitude seems to have been a combination of dependency on my mother-in-law and his own self-deprecation about being an adopted son-in-law. That's probably why my mother-in-law could remain kind to him until the end, despite his domineering ways. Though I think it was a somewhat twisted relationship, I feel a bit envious that she could maintain such affection for my father-in-law. But my father, your grandfather, refused to allow adoption of your father until his death. So your father had no right to inherit our property. Even so, why did Mom adopt Nikki? I explained everything to her, including how your father would probably be harsh with her. And there was one more thing I understood. My mother-in-law said this meaningfully. By then, we already knew you were having an affair. My mother-in-law and I had thoroughly discussed everything, and decided that if he showed remorse, we would pretend nothing had happened. But unfortunately, that's not how things turned out. Nikki, you've taken such good care of my husband. This is my way of apologizing for my son's behavior. I'm glad you think of me as a real mother. Is it selfish of me to want you to stay with me forever? My mother-in-law said this, and I agreed to the adoption. So you're the one who needs to leave this house. You have no right to live here. Yes. I've decided I want to live with Nikki. I don't want to see the face of whoever you marry next. And my will states that all my property goes to Nikki. Mom. How could you? My husband can't believe his mother's words. Get out. Take Zach with you. You're abandoning Zach even though you're his mother. The notarized document says we'll each take one child, right? And you said you understand Zach well. It's natural for people who understand each other to live together, isn't it? My ex-husband had nothing left to say. A few days later, my ex-husband and Zach left our house. I know where they went. A house my ex-husband rented. Even though custody goes to my ex-husband, Zach is still my son. I can't be completely uninvolved if something happens to him. Humph. I'm glad to leave this house. Living with just Dad will be much better. Dad's an elite and earns lots of money, unlike living in poverty with a part-time working mom. Zach doesn't know. He doesn't know that his father will marry his mistress, that he's taken on a lot of debt from this situation, and that his father's affair has been discovered at work, resulting in a pay cut and an impending demotion. Take care. Let me know if anything happens. I never want to see you again. Don't come crying to Dad when you're in trouble. Women really are stupid. I don't know how Zach will feel when he learns the truth. As a mother, I feel sorry for Zach, but now that his personality has become so warped and he's so trapped in his contempt for women, there's nothing I as his mother can do. I don't know if my ex-husband can do anything with him, but I have to leave it to him. After the divorce was finalized, I changed from part-time to full-time work. I was originally a pharmacist. I chose that job because I wanted to help people. After giving birth, I had reduced to 4-hour part-time work, but the pharmacy where I work had always said I could return to full-time whenever I wanted. So there's absolutely no problem with future income. I can send Tara to the school she wants and support whatever path she chooses. My ex-husband had renovated the house to make it as comfortable as possible, thinking of his own old age. Thanks to that, we can live comfortably too. Now that my father-in-law has passed away, my mother-in-law is looking forward to finding her own enjoyments. I can't understand what she saw in such a domineering father-in-law, but people's feelings are truly mysterious. Tara is also living freely now without Zach's verbal abuse. By the way, I recently got a call from Zach. You must be struggling without a man around, right? I might come back if you want. Probably because my ex-husband's demotion was decided and they have to move to the countryside. Because of Zach's attitude, my ex-husband and his mistress are already facing divorce. My ex-husband has contacted me whining, please do something about Zach. Of course, I politely refused. Zach, thank you for your concern, but we're fine for now. Please think about your own life. Goodbye. I hung up after saying that. Maybe I'm being cold as a mother. But when I remember Zach's face from back then, showing the same face as his grandfather and throwing the same verbal abuse, I can't live with him anymore. Strangely, while my mother-in-law could forgive what her husband did, she couldn't tolerate Zach doing the same things. From now on, we 3 women will live each day comfortably. Maybe this is our reward for those 2 years of caring for my father-in-law. Come to think of it, it was just a few years out of my life. Forgetting about the past storm, I hope to spend the rest of my life like a calm sea.